Hi, let's be honest. As a teacher educator, I'm going to ask you a question. Has your student tell you that he is bored in the class, that I'm completely bored? Yes, it happens in the classroom that students are bored. And we treat boredom as something which is not necessary and something which needs to be fixed in the class. Students, when they say that we are bored, it seems like a red flag, like an alarm, as if something has happened in the class and we have failed as a teacher. What should we do? And today on this stage, I'm going to tell all the teachers, please do not do anything. Yes, do not do anything in the class if your students say that I am bored. Because boredom is not something that needs to be fixed in the classrooms, but boredom is one which leads to a very important 21st century skill, and that is called creativity. Yes, you heard it right. Boredom is necessary because it leads to creativity. Last year, I remember while I was training a group of high school teachers, one of the teachers who was sitting in that right corner, she was very hesitant. She came to me and she said, "Ma'am, I have a question." I said, "Yes, go ahead." And she said, "Ma'am, I have tried everything in my class. I have tried a lot of activities, I've tried a lot of games, I've tried everything. But I don't know why my students, they keep zoning out, they keep looking out. I don't know what to do. What should I do?" I said, "It's okay." And then I asked her, "Okay, dear teacher, tell me, when your students are bored, what do they do?" She took a pause and she said, "Ma'am, I stop boredom before it starts." And yes, dear educators, we as teachers are conditioned to do that. We never allow boredom to enter in our classrooms because we find that boredom needs to be fixed or we have failed as a teacher. So she said, "I just stop it before it starts because we are conditioned. We as educators, we try to manage, we try to entertain, we try to engage, we try to connect with the students." And today on this stage, I want to tell you, and I want to tell you a very important thing, that let's look at boredom with a different perspective, with a different outlook. Boredom, my dear educators, is not the enemy of learning, but boredom is something which is precursor to learning. Boredom comes before learning, it really starts. So boredom comes before that excitement kicks in. And that's where, when that excitement is there, and then it starts with the process of creativity. So when your students say that, "Ma'am, I'm bored," it means that the student doesn't know how to manage his attention. He doesn't know what to do with his attention. So that's why it's very important to manage that attention, because that period of mental restlessness, that period of mental anxiety, when the student doesn't know what to do, after that mental restlessness, he really wants to do something, and then, with that anxiety, it leads to a lot of other perspective and it leads to creative thinking. And even the neuroscience, it supports it. Neuroscience says that when a person is bored, then that default mode network of that person kicks in. Yes, you heard it right. Default mode network. So this default mode network is that network of the brain that is responsible for problem solving, that is responsible for creative thinking, that is responsible for daydreaming. So when a student says, "I am bored," that default mode network jumps in. And he starts thinking into different directions, into different perspectives. And his mind goes on wavering, like we daydream. And he may start thinking of a poem in his head, or he starts doodling. And there are a lot of things which goes on his mind. He starts making connections. inside his head. So from the outside level, a teacher may not know what is happening inside the brain, but there are a lot of connections which are being made and formulated. For example, the child may think, what Batman eats for his breakfast, because he's very energetic. So maybe he eats a pancake which is filled of protein. Or maybe he thinks, let's end this history lesson with a different ending. So there may be a lot of things which the child might think. Or he may think, okay, on which other planets the gravity is there. So it's very, very important to give that space, that mental restlessness to the child, so that his mind wavers and goes into different direction. But what happens in the real classrooms? We teachers do not give them the space, because we fill their spaces. We fill their spaces with a lot of information, with lots of activities. But believe me, when we all say that creativity is the 21st century skills, where are we giving them the space to create something new? Let's talk about our schools. Everything is structured in the schools. Start with the morning bell, and then from one period to another period, the feedback loops, the digital resources, everything is structured. Everything, and I would say every minute in our schools is accounted for. So where will the child get time to create? My dear friends, creativity doesn't come in those packed schedules, but creativity comes when we allow the children to ask questions. What if? What if? And what if? When the child, asks these questions, what if, what if, what if, then his mind gets trained and he goes into different directions and he thinks in different directions. It's very important when we talk about this 21st century skills, it's very, very imperative to allow children, to give them that unstructured time which is missing in our schools. I know many of my fellow educators would say, ma'am, if we give them that unstructured time in schools, the students will not know how to use that boredom. They may just sit idle, or they may just sit on and they'll not do anything. And I totally respect their point. So that is why on this stage, I would really advise all my dear educators who are doing wonderful work to give them a concept that is called guided boredom. Now, what is this guided boredom all about? Guided boredom is a concept where the teacher is going to guide the students. He's going to give them the prompts. He's going to give them the situation so that there is boredom, but we are channelizing that boredom. We are giving them time where we have structured, prompts for them, and the students, he thinks in that direction. For example, the teacher may think, okay, now this is a character. If this character is not there, then which other character did you like, or how would you like to start or initiate this play? And then you see, there will, with these prompts, the children will think about this character, and every student will come up with different ideas. And that would initiate that process of problem solving, creativity, and yes, of course, design thinking, which is very, very popular these days. So let's all unite and treat boredom as very, very important part of learning and not a stigma. Let's just destigmatize this concept of boredom. It's very important that in our schools, when we are preparing them for their overall development, for their holistic growth, give them the space to think, to wander, so that they bring something new. Because what is creativity? Creativity is creating something new. Creativity is creating something novel. And when we are preparing our children for a world where there is a lot of competition, we have to give them time to think, to introspect, to reflect, to ponder on, so that they bring different ideas. Let's make boredom as a very important skill, as an important skill where they can find out something new. Let's just not try to fix, boredom, but make our students understand how are you going to use this boredom in your classrooms and going to bring the best. Because the best of ideas, they come when we just relax, when there are no external stimulations. And when we are relaxed or we are daydreaming, then we try to doodle out or we play with our rubrics, and then we try to find something innovative, something new. And this world needs those creative people to change and transform this world. Even the best of the discoverers or the best of the creative thinkers also give credit to their creativity. They give credit to boredom. Yes, my dear friends, J.K. Rowling, the famous J.K. Rowling, she said once she was just in 1990s, she was once traveling from Manchester to London, and she was just idle. She even didn't have a pen with her, and she was just looking outside the window, and she found a famous character of Harry Potter. Toni Morrison, the great American author. She said, while I was doing laundry, I found and prepared all the characters of her famous novel, The Beloved. Steve Jobs. Who doesn't know Steve Jobs? Steve Jobs said that I also give credit to my creativity to boredom. Because when you are bored, your mind goes into different directions. You become curious. You try to imagine. And when you try to imagine, you become curious, then you evolve as a person, you reflect, you introspect, and you give something big. And yes, Einstein used to daydream a lot. He used to just sit idle and look outside the window and just imagine how a gleam of light could ride. And there he came with the concept of relativity. Yes, my dear friends. When these excellent, I would say, discoverers or people who have found themselves, they give credit to boredom. They give credit to a place where there is just stillness, where they could just reflect. Then why don't we initiate this concept in our schools? I totally understand and appreciate each teacher's contribution to our education. And I know many of the schools have started doing that. But still, we all are in that structured way. We all are in that structured, I would say, we have a structured philosophy. We have everything structured, and we don't give that much space to children to think out of the box. But today, it is the time to let's all, as educators, give them the information. I know it is our work. We have to give them the information. But we also need to give them the space. We also need to revise some pauses, maybe a 60-second pause. When you start a chapter, maybe you can give that 60-second pause. Okay, now this is a title. What do you think about that? Who will be the main characters of this play or of this story? And after that, after reading that chapter or after reading that story, you can again give them that 60-second pause. Okay, what have you learned? How you could have done it better? What are your different perspectives? So that the child at least thinks. It's very, very important to reflect, to give them that freedom, and to make them realize that boredom is necessary, because when you're bored, then only you think something which is out of the box. So it is very important to give them that unstructured time in schools so that they create something new out of it. So my dear friends, so if your students tell you that I am bored and I don't have anything to do, please tell them how are you going to use that boredom in creating something new. Because underlying that boredom lies brilliance. It lies creativity. Do not let your students, just follow whatever the instructions you give them. Give them that space where they can discover themselves, redesign themselves, because 21st century is the century where all the creative thinkers would be applauded and appreciated. Thank you very much.